I remember an uncle who was a specialist in modeling. He spent hours assembling a miniature airplane, making sure every piece fit perfectly. While doing so, he added some paint, tiny scratches, and a bit of weathering. That's when a plastic canvas became a masterpiece. It no longer looked like a toy, it looked real. That's the magic of materials in Unreal Engine. They take simple objects and transform them into something immersive and believable. If you want to create realistic, immersive, eye-catching environments in Unreal Engine, then you need to understand materials. In a few minutes, I'll introduce you the first principles of materials and then show you how to use their most relevant properties, using a material imported from Quixel as an example. By the end, you'll have a solid foundation on which to start making your game look stunning. But before we jump in, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on Unreal Engine tips, free assets, and professional level game development insights to help you build stunning prototypes and projects and grow your career in the gaming industry. I created a template of a third-person project in Unreal. The first step is about bring a material from Quixel. I click on this button on the fab. If you don't have it, it's because you don't enabled already the plugin for the version of your Unreal. You will find a video in the description where I explain how you can enable this button, and I recommend to do that because the process is easier. I mean, to importing the assets from fab directly with this plugin is easier than to download it and add it to your project. Click on fab, look for material and textures, and let's filter by Quixel. And the name of the material I want is called Mossy Rock. I now filter for the price free. I'm going to pick this one. As you can see, this is exactly what I mentioned about the power of materials. Look all the textures that are represented with this material. Now we'll add it to the project. Back to our project in the content browser. You can find the materials on the new folder of Fab inside this medium. When you download materials and texture from Quixel, you will find this object, this asset, which is a material instance, and other 3 textures usually. If you want to add this material, for example, to this surface, you can only take the material, drag it, and release it over the surface. What is immediately amazing is that you can start playing your game and you will see on the surface of the character that it has this look of 3D. Even more, you can use Control L and start moving the sun and you will see that effect over the surface. Oh, let me remove that one. You can look that effect over the surface like the light is affecting the elements of the surface in a different way. Look at that. This is the power of materials in Unreal. And what is even more interesting is that if you see the surface, but you put on a perspective to see it from the bottom, the thing is that it all looks like it is plain, even though when the light is touching the surface is creating that effect of 3D over the images in that material. Unreal does this calculation using these textures that you see on the bottom. The more texture, the more information you have for a material, the more detailed the material will be. Now, there are 2 kinds of assets associated with materials that are important to mention. One is the material instance, and you can usually recognize it because we as programmer defined them, started the description of material instance as MIs, but also because it says here material instance. The textures, usually we start with a T, and of course they are defining as texture. Let's open the material instance by double clicking it. When you open the material instance, you have several parameters that you can set to change that material instance. For example, let's say that for the base color texture, I want to add the parameter brightness, or I want to reduce the parameter of brightness. So here I can control this value. You can also change the color. For example, I can add more red to this material and then the material will look red. What is key is the fact that this is a material instant. I am not affecting the original material. Don't worry, we're going to get to the details of how to define a material in a second. But the good thing is that I'm using a material instance. So what I'm doing is taking the parameters that are provided by the material to change this material instance in another direction in the ways that I want this to be presented. Why it is important in your projects to use material instances instead of materials? Well, there are two reasons: performance efficiency and optimization. In the terms of performance efficiencies, the material instances are pre-compiled versions of a material, and that means that they are much faster to render compared to using multiple unique materials. And the optimization is because since materials instances reuse the parent the materials shader, they reduce the number of shaders Unreal needs to compile. And this, at the end, the effect is that you are going to be saving memory and processing time. Now we're going to get ready to create our own material from scratch and explain you the properties. Let's go to content, and first, as usual, I will add a new folder called game. And in game, to keep the order, a folder called materials. And for this scene, I'm going to add a new object. So let's go to place actors, shapes, and I will add a cube. And also I'm going to make the light more vertical. Looking great. Selecting the folder of materials, right-click, and look for the option of materials. I pick the first one, which is material. Let's call this material M, because it's not a material instant, this is just a material. It will be just the M. And let's add moss rock. Open the material. And now here you will work with another structure of nodes. This is not a blueprint, but it looks similar in terms that they use nodes. But this is for defining how the material is going to be. To define your new material, you will use these input parameters that are assigned on this node. Every time you create a new material, you will be prompted with this node. You can change these parameters directly, like let's say the base color. I can click over it and let's select a purplish color. Okay. And now it will update the value of the base color for this template, for this pre-visualization of the material. You can change as well in different geometries to see how this material is going to look. And you can also identify the values, the spectrum of value you can use for every one of these inputs. If you have more questions for the inputs, and I recommend you to check this, you can also go to the documentation of Unreal, find what is the version of Unreal that you are using for your project, and then search for the materials input. And here you have all the details that you need for every input that is part of this group of parameters. Let's say that I want to add some more metallic. Yes, I want this cube to, oh no, the cube, no, this sphere. I can change this value to, let's say 1, and it's going to be very intense metallic. But I also can create a parameter that is external to this input. Keep the 1 key pressed and left click. And here you create a parameter that has just one value. It's not a vector, or it's a vector that has one coordinate. And now I can connect this with the metallic input. At this moment, the value is 0, but if I change it to 1, then you see how metallic this is. To remove the connection of this parameter, just keep the Alt key down and left click. I will remove this parameter as well by selecting it and deleting. What I want to do is to use the parameters, the textures that were imported using Fab, these 3 textures, to define the parameters for the input of my material. And with this, it's important to understand why the notation that you use for your project is so essential and important, because it doesn't matter who is going to work on this, they have to understand what were you trying to say with a particular asset. In this case, for when you're working with Fab, every time that you import a material or texture, you will find the information starting with MI saying that this is a material instance, but you also find the T defined that is a texture. And also at the end of the description, you will find an extra information. Let's say, for example, this one. Here you will see that at the end it finished with a B. B refers to this parameter, to this input, which is the base color. So this one, which is the B, refers to the parameter named base color. So I can drag this texture over the material and I can connect from the RGB to the base color. Let's go to the other two. The next one is one that finishes an N. N refers to the normal, and the normal is what creates this effect on your surface that it looks like 3D even when the surface is not 3D. So I can drag this to my material and then looking for the parameter, which is the normal, this one, and connect the RGB output to this input in the normal. Let me be clear, if you are not using materials to prototype your ideas or make your projects and portfolio stand out, then you're missing out. In this industry where entry-level positions often ask for 2 years of experience, standing out isn't just an option, it is essential. Small details like the way you present your work and consistency in what you deliver are what get you noticed. But there's the thing, doing it all on your own can be tough. No online course or institution can give you a clear methodology to truly break into the gaming industry. They don't care about your success, they care about your tuition check. That's why I created the Game Creator Accelerator. It's a lifetime mentorship program designed to help you achieve your goals. Whether you want to land a job in the industry studio or build your own solid business model. The best part, the investment doesn't come close to the tens of thousands you pay for just 1 year of an institution. But unlike them, my support is for life. This program is built around structured steps that let you move at your own pace, so you are never alone on your journey. Spaces for the GCA are limited. If you are ready to level up your career, shoot me an email at tony@woolun.com or check the link in the description for more details. Now it rests just one extra texture to add to our material. Back here, you will find that the description for these textures finishes in ORM. O refers to the occlusion, R refers to the roughness, and the M to the metallic. If you open this texture, you will find that it has 3 different channels, RGB in order. The R will be, if we remove this, the R will be the one controlling the occlusion. The green will be the one controlling the roughness, and last one, the B, will control the metallic parameter, the metallic input for our material. Let's close this. Let's enable all and close them. Back to our material, and let's add our last texture. As I mentioned a moment ago, the R will be the occlusion, so I'm going to connect this pin with the ambient occlusion. The green will be connected with the roughness, and the B with the metallic. Apply and save. Now we have our new material, and you can see how it's going to look in different 3D objects. Back to our scene, let's add this material to our new box. Go to your materials folder. Here is our new material, and drag the material directly to the object. And here it is, the material applied to our new object. If we open our material and let's say that we're going to remove the normal component for this input and we apply, you can see that that effect of 3D that was created over the surface is not longer there. Everything looks like a painting. There is no effect of the light over the surface. You can see it here very clearly. If we go now to our object, you will see that it is plain, that the light is not affecting the surface. Look at that, nothing is happening around it. But if we again connect the normal texture to the normal and apply, save, and go back, then you can see how the light is affecting again the surface of our material. Remember that we mentioned the importance of using material instances instead of materials. At this moment, we are applying a material directly to this object, which is not efficient for the reasons I mentioned at the beginning of this video. If you open the material, you'll see that the structure is like this one. You have something like a structure of nodes that allows you to control the input parameters for this material. Now, if we go to the material interface that was provided with the asset that we get from Fab and open it, you don't have these node structures. You have only parameters that you can play with. So how can I get a material instance from this material I have? From the material that you created, right-click and select the option of Create Material Instance. Renaming it at the beginning as an MI, and that will differentiate this one in the description from this one, although also Unreal offer you extra information and tells you here is a material, and on this one here is a material instance. If you double click this new material instance you created, you will see that you no longer has the structure of nodes to define the inputs for your material. But now I can use this material instance and apply it to my new created object. To see the material that was applied to your object, you can also find the parameter of materials inside the details once the object is selected. You can also drag this material directly here. As you can see at this moment, the material of this object cube is called MI Moss Rock. If this video added value to you, like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss tips and tutorials on Unreal Engine and how to build your successful career in video games. And be sure to check out the next video on indie dev biggest mistake you need to avoid. Until next time, keep creating, keep sharing, and most importantly, keep dreaming big. I'll see you soon, my fellow creators.